Okay, so this is where we left off last time. So now we have to fix those small details, especially everything that it's related with the thermal bridge here. Okay, so we have the roof, but when we have the structure, we have to interrupt, especially the thermal insulation. And the same thing happens here on this, on the first floor and here on the roof. Okay, so, and this is what happens in the real building. So we build the structure, then we have the basic wall and roof, and finally we fix all the gaps and we fill all the gaps with thermal insulation. So let's analyze what we have here. Okay, so in this case, that's the beam. I don't have the textures here, but this is the beam with these connectors here. That's the OSB board, these two, and that's the cellulose. Here we have the rigid insulation outside, and well, there's a thermal bridge here because we lose the continuity of the thermal insulation. We have cellulose, this is cellulose, this is cellulose, but here we interrupt it because we have the beam. But look at this, we have left this cavity, okay? So when we open the window, we use this element as a solid frame. So we can use this base to fill this with thermal insulation, and then we will cover the beam. The beam is yeah, it's the thermal bridge in this case. So we can do it. We can first select the USB board, and probably we can extend the board up to the, yeah, to this roof here and here to the ceiling. Okay, so now that's the cellulose, and I have extended this USB board. And what else? Well, we have here this horizontal and this horizontal element. Okay, so between these two horizontal elements, I can place another panel of thermal insulation. And for sure, I need to extend. Yeah, so look at this. I need to extend these beams or these stats up to this, or I have to lower this one. It depends. Okay. So what is easier? I don't know. I think if I do this and I have this top offset, now it's -1. Okay, so let's make it 0. So those numbers can be different depending on what levels you have been using. So I think I need to move it 1 foot up. Okay, there you go. No, it's too much. Okay, so let's make it 8 inches. I think that works well. Okay, so I have extended this. So now I'm going to do the same with all these vertical studs. Only the vertical, this one. And this is 8 inches up. Okay, so now I continue this. Why am I doing this? Because I have to continue the siding as well. Okay, but I'll do that later. On this element, I can, yeah, so I can fill this gap with this thermal insulation. Okay, so all this gap has to be filled with thermal insulation, except this blue one, the rigid insulation here. But what's new is this. So I want to make the most of this cavity. Okay, so here I have a cavity from the window. That's the window frame. So all this is hollow up to this window sill, okay? So what I'm going to do is to fill this cavity with another panel of rigid insulation. So I can go to architecture, component, model in place. This belongs to the wall. So I'm going to select wall. I'm going to set the work plane. I'm going to pick. Yes, so remember that we need to, okay, so I need a rectangle. So where can it be? Can't find a rectangle here. Okay, so I have to do this using the one of the elevations. That's the west. I'm going to use the south. Okay, from the south, yes, I'm working with numbers here, so I have to set the work plane on one of the letters, grid A, for example. And where am I? So I'm here, okay. So that's the window frame, that's the cavity. So I'm going to place a thermal insulation from the top of this window until the sill of this window on the second floor. So I have to fill this cavity because the beam is this one, that's the beam. And I need to, yeah, I have thermal insulation here. This is wood, okay, that's fine. So here I have to place more thermal insulation. So let's do it. Component model in place, wall. I'm going to set the work plane on the grid A, and I can create the first rectangle. Okay, so if I start here and I end there, this will work because on the 3D view, it's this one. Okay, so I have to extend this up to this point. And well, I started inside the column, so I have to put it there. Okay, so you see that that's the beam, that's the thermal insulation. I wouldn't have a thermal bridge, but I don't think it's enough. So I'm going to create uh, another element there. Okay, so on the south elevation, I keep editing the extrusion, and I'm going to create another rectangle from this point to the seal of the window. Okay, so it has a different thickness. There's an overlap here. Well, in the real world, I will have two different panels with two different thickness, but in Revit, I can make something like this. And now on the 3D view, yep, there you go. So now I have created another thermal insulating material covering the beam and even the those joists. I am going to set the material to rigid insulation. I have the rigid insulation here with this bluish color. And when I finish the model and I use realistic colors, yep, you see that I have this extra thermal insulation here. I can keep adding thermal insulation. Okay, so why not? I can place this, I can fill these gaps here with more thermal insulation. The more, the merrier. Okay, so do not save money on thermal insulation because it's one of the best investments that you can do. So here we have this thermal insulation on the joists. Okay, so we have created like this U shape with wood. And we place here the thermal insulation, so the joists are in contact with this thermal insulation. Then we have wood. Then we have another rigid insulation panel here. And then those elements, those horizontal elements, are nailed to the, well, it's a mess now, but they are nailed to this column. And we have the gap here filled with thermal insulation. Okay. So now I only have to continue the siding because I don't have a thermal bridge here. So now it's almost perfect. So what can I do with the siding? I don't know. Can I edit that extrusion here? Yes, I can. Okay, since well, you see that the last element of the siding is slightly shorter. Okay, so I'm going to delete it. And I'm going to copy this one here. Be careful, I don't want to include this one. And now copy from this point to this point and keep going down until we overlap this one. Hmm. So I don't need this last one. Okay, so you see that now I have to connect this siding and the other siding. So probably I need to move this slightly downwards. I take this line as a reference here. Okay, so now I want to get rid of this one. And since I need to adjust the siding up to the roof, I can keep going all the way up to this board that I have. So I'm going to copy this here and here and there. And I don't think I can fit another one. No, this is too much. So I'm going to get rid of the last one. Okay. Again, I have to create a solution for this gap that I have here, but I think the siding is good. So when I click finish, so now the siding is complete here. So finish the model and there you go. Okay, so now I have the first floor, the second floor, but yeah, now it works better than the other one. And this is hidden here. It's protected against the water, but here now I have to solve this gap that I have here. I don't have any gap here because I worked with this thermal insulation. Okay, so I made the most of this frame that I created here for this window, the same frame that I created here for this window. So I have this cavity, and now this cavity is filled with the thermal insulation so that the beam, that's the beam, is not exposed to the outdoor air. Okay, so that's the beam, and we have thermal insulation here. And we do have this rain screen that can fill again with this layer of thermal insulation, or I can leave it that way. So I can, if I edit in place this, and I edit the extrusion, I can always create another rectangle of rigid insulation here. There you go. Okay, so now we have thermal insulation here as well. So finish the model, and this is it. Okay, so that's the panel that I have done. Well, now I realize that there's another gap without thermal insulation here. Oh, but that's not true. This is because I didn't extend it. Okay. So now I only have to fill that gap. You see? So the most difficult part is this. How can I do to connect the joists and uh, all that stuff here? Well, first and foremost, those stats, they have to go all the way up because I have to nail this to somewhere. This last siding piece, it's floating. So I'm going to go to the top offset. I'm going to make it 14. Okay, yeah, just underneath this one, I have to extend those stats all the way up. Okay, I would need to do it with all of them, but here I only have one, but I have to extend all these. And now what's this? Okay, so that's the beam. That's the triangular wooden piece that I used to fix the joists. Okay, that's the OSB board. And what happens here? So I should have something to close that gap here. So that can be okay. So I'm going to place another wooden element here, and then I will fill that gap with more thermal insulation. Yeah, I think it will work. Yeah. So let's do it. I'm going to go to architecture, component, model in place. This, what is this, a wall or a roof? I would say that's a roof. And I would set the work plane as grid A. And with extrusion, I'm going to do this. Okay, I'm going to cover all this element with a wooden element like this. Okay, so that would be good, that I protect the joists and I stop the cellulose, and then I'm going to fill all this with that rigid insulation. So let's do this. The material, I want this to be softwood. Okay, and now I have to extend it in the right. This. Okay. So now I have this element here. Now the joists and the cellulose are in the right place. And the only thing I have to do, I have to fill this gap here with more thermal insulation. Oh, I told you that. Yeah. Okay, what was the height of this? It was 14. Okay, so I can select all these and the top offset, make it 14 feet. Yeah. Okay, see that? I have to nail this siding to something solid. So this horizontal element is connected to the column. Then this vertical element is connected to the horizontal, and then the siding is connected to the vertical. So everything has to be like this. And now fill the gap here with more thermal insulation. So from the front view, I want to fill this gap from this frame up to the top with more thermal insulation. So let's do it. Architecture, component, model in place, roof. Okay. Set the work plane, grid A. Select extrusion. And the gap is this one. Okay, so I have this wall here. I go all the way up to this element that I created there. And now I have to build something with a shape. This. Okay, click finish. This is rigid insulation. Model. And see it. Select it. And drag it where. Okay, so now we have filled the gap with the thermal insulation. We can do the same thing here. Okay, if I edit this extrusion, I select it again, edit the extrusion, I can keep filling this with thermal insulating panels, one here and another one there. Finish, finish. And there you go. So now we have a good amount of thermal insulation there and there, and I don't have a thermal breach here. What would be the last thing? Well, there are always small, tiny connections that I need to prevent this from happening. Okay, so these small gaps that we have here, and we can always solve this by means of another small piece of wood. The same thing I did here. Okay, so I'm going to go to architecture component, model in place, roof. Okay, set the work plane, grid A. And that extrusion, yep, if I want to protect everything here, I would need something like this. This material is the softwood. Hmm. And where is it? Here, and now I have to drag it all the way. There you go. Okay, so yeah, we always have this. Probably in the real world, it's easier because that shape is very weird for the thermal insulation. So if I edit this extrusion and I make it like this, That will be good enough. And I have here an air gap. Well, I don't know. I think that's good enough, because the most important thing is I don't have any thermal breaches. So that was the beam, and the beam now is wrapped or is covered by the cellulose on the roof and the rigid insulation here. So I don't have any thermal breaches. And if I do this now, I think we are all good. Probably I need to hide these elements, so I would need like the last siding. If I edit the extrusion, I might need something like this. Up. Okay. But in this last one, I think I have to change the tilt of this element so that I create an overlap, small gap there. And now I can we are splitting hairs here. Okay, so it's just, I think it was a large gap without siding. And if we do this, now it would look much better. There you go. So are we done? Well, I think so, because we have solved this thermal bridge here and this thermal bridge here on the roof. I make the most of this solid element that I created for as the window pre-frame, because those are the window frames. Okay, so I used this to fix this element, and then I used this element to fix this one, and then that one, the triple glazing here. And I think that's it.